the easiest way to break down the difference between a lead gen campaign or an activity and kind of branding is that you lengthen the time horizon. Hey, I'm Spencer Powell and welcome back to Builder Funnel TV, where remodelers and custom builders tune in to grow their businesses. Quick reminder before we get started, if you haven't joined Remodeler Growth Community, head on over to remodelercommunity.com. We'll also drop a link below the video, and you do get some sweet bonuses when you sign up. All right, so let's dive into today's topic, which is branding. And branding is one of those things for the longest time I never fully grasped it. You know, you kind of look at these companies like Coke and Nike, and they're these iconic brands that we all know and we see, and you see commercials and you see graphics everywhere. And when you go to a store, you recognize the brand. And so you think about that at scale and you kind of understand conceptually, okay, branding must work, right? Because these big companies spend lots and lots of money on that. But how does that actually work when it comes to thinking about a local remodeling business or a local custom home builder, and you're thinking, well, I need leads, and yeah, I want people to recognize my brand, but they're not buying a house every day or remodeling their home every day or every week or even every year. And so one of the things that I've learned about branding is that when you think about lead generation and branding, kind of breaking those apart, lead generation typically has a specific goal. You're driving through specific channels and you're trying to drive an action, whether that's an email conversion on your website, a phone call, or somebody that is responding to something like an ad or a mailer or something like that. But they're taking some sort of action. Whereas branding, you're trying to generate awareness, you're trying to build trust and credibility, and so you have a different purpose there, but the long-range purpose is still there, and that is to generate a lead. But the easiest way to break down the difference between a lead gen campaign or an activity and kind of branding is that you lengthen the time horizon. So branding has a really long time horizon on the lead that is generated. If we're just looking at these activities from kind of an ROI standpoint. And so typically branding efforts are going to have a higher ROI over the long term. And so to break that down in a simple example, if you're just saying, hey, I just need to generate some leads today, you might just go to Google Ads and put in a budget, put in some keywords, say, I want to show up for kitchen remodeling in Denver, and so I'm going to pay when people search or type that in, I'm going to pay for any clicks on my ad. And you're going to drive people right to your site, and the goal is that they're looking for that and they need that service, and you're going to drive them into your funnel. Whereas with branding, you might sponsor a Little League team or something like that, and you're saying, hey, I'm not really looking for somebody to see my logo and my sign and just call me right away, but they're going to see it over and over. Maybe they're going to see that you sponsor this team every year and over multiple years, and by the time year 4 rolls around of one of the other parents, they're ready to remodel. Well, you've kind of been there, you've been present in their mind, you've been a supporter of something that they're involved with, so you've built some of this equity. But if you just looked at it from like a 3-month or 6-month standpoint, you go, well, I just dumped that money into that and it returned nothing. So you need to measure branding efforts over a longer period of time, and sometimes it will be a multi-year journey before you really know if that starts to pay off. I always think about a personal example of mine that I think is pretty funny, which is I have a local jeweler here, and growing up, as a kid, you'd be listening to the radio, you'd be driving around with the family, and you'd hear commercials. And I literally heard this commercial come on probably every single week, maybe multiple times a week for years, maybe even a decade. And then by the time I graduated college and was ready to propose, I actually went back to that jeweler because I was like, how am I going to get this ring? And that was like somebody that stood out in my mind. And so if they would have just said, yeah, we're going to run radio ads for a year, they probably would have generated some activity, but maybe from an ROI standpoint, it would have looked worse compared to maybe just a direct lead gen channel versus that just general exposure that they were looking for over a long time horizon. Every year they get more repetition in front of the same people, and timing isn't always right? So for me, I didn't need to go there until about 10 or 12 years later. And then timing was right. And then it was, hey, quick decision. And they were top of mind. So I went there and game over. And so I think that is a helpful distinction in thinking about lead gen activities versus branding, just from kind of an ROI perspective and a results standpoint. When we talk about all the activities, you're still going to see some overlap in channels, things like content marketing, social media, advertising, all of those types of things. So I think when you participate in a channel like that, you have to think, what is my primary goal here? Is it actually to just purely generate leads today, or am I trying to generate some brand awareness, some trust, some people getting familiar with my brand? And I do want it to generate leads, but I'm not necessarily expecting the same volume that I would be with a lead gen campaign and lead gen channel. So all that being said, I think now is actually one of the best times to start some branding activities and build kind of that habit of having a branding component to what you're doing in your marketing, because we're so busy as an industry. Everybody's booked out, everybody's slammed. And so if you're thinking, hey, I need to start thinking long term, then this is a great time to start thinking about some branding campaigns and some branding activity and some things you can do that will support that, so that when we hit a slowdown, whenever that is, whether it's 2 years, 4 years, 6 years, you've been leading up to that with the right approach and the right activities. So hopefully that helped give some context and a distinction between pure lead gen and branding. The end goal is similar in that you're hoping to grow your business and grow exposure over time, but different approaches and some nuance there. All right, guys, that's what I got for you today, and we'll see you next time here on Builder Funnel TV.